Hasselbeck and Peter Schrager. So let's get started with some schedule release news, guys. Monday Night Football is going to kick things off September 14th with division rivals, the Broncos and the Chiefs. Such a good matchup to kick off our Monday night coverage. And after failing to make the playoffs for the first time since 2014, those Chiefs with some changes at the offseason. Their offensive coordinator replacing Matt Nagy. They bring back Eric Bieniemy. They signed Justin Fields as a backup for insurance after Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL and LCL in December. And of course, they signed the Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker. So Mina, GM Brett Veach said that Mahomes is way ahead of schedule, could maybe participate in OTAs on a limited basis. So let's assume he's healthy for most of the season. Have the Chiefs done enough to return to contention?
Offensively, I don't know. They're really betting on that run game improving. But defensively, I do think the Chiefs did a good job addressing one of their biggest weaknesses last year, which was the lack of a consistent pass rush. This was still a team that blitzed a ton, fourth highest rate in football under Steve Spagnuolo. But when they did blitz, they weren't getting home. 25th in pressure rate, 27th in sack rate. And it feels like with some of the additions they made in the draft, two of their top three picks being defensive linemen, Peter Woods and R. Mason Thomas, they really want to improve the speed on that front and perhaps lean more on the four-man rush to put less pressure on the secondary. So while the loss, of two of their starting cornerbacks, Trent McDuffie, of course, and Jalen Watson, will be felt. I do think the addition of Mansour Delane will help in that regard. And on top of that, I think the pass rush being better should help them on the back end. It was a nice gift for Steve Spagnuolo.
I mean, I think I feel the same way in terms of just that reluctancy to say, yeah, offensively they're going to be better. I mean, clearly they've given some attention to the running back position with the investment in Kenneth Walker, but with, the moves being, primarily on the defensive side of the ball, especially through the draft, it seems a little odd to me that they're kind of banking on that receiving group, with Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice and Tyquan Thornton to play better than they have in past years. And then obviously, just some off the field concerns with Rashee Rice, and you're doing that all while Patrick Mahomes is coming off of a major knee injury. And look, who knows, maybe he'll be back, but when he's back, will he be the Patrick Mahomes that we remember right away? And if he's not, are you supporting Justin Fields with enough talent around him to kind of hold things together until Mahomes does get back? So I will say I'm a little bit surprised that there wasn't, more moves, on the offensive side, but I do think that Andy Reid is probably banking on he and Eric Bieniemy and the coaching staff on that side to get things back to the way they were really, probably 3 years ago.
Yeah, but still some legitimate questions that you bring up, and a question still for this game on Monday night, because we don't know exactly where the location is going to be. Is it going to be in Denver? Is it going to be in KC? But Peter, you were at the league offices today for the Pat McAfee show, so pull the curtain back for us a little bit. I mean, what did you learn about this process and what is still being decided?
Well, it's interesting, Hannah. In one room, we were filming the McAfee show, and then literally in the conference room next door was the team that makes up the schedule, and they were still hard at work. It's almost like there's a bunch of chefs in the kitchen, and I'm just peeking in. Is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? And it wasn't ready yet. And then by the end of the day, Roger Goodell did come in and say, now we finally have an official schedule that he's comfortable with. Bizarre, though, that they would announce that Monday Night Football opener is between the Chiefs and the Broncos, but we don't have a location yet. Very strange, meaning there was something that still had to come together. But now we do know that at least they feel like internally there they have an answer. I'll say this, when you put these two teams in week one, what it does is it gives us more of a talking point on will Mahomes be ready. And Mina, I know you're competing in Celebrity Jeopardy. You've reached the final round. I'm fired up. I'm rooting for you over Katie Nolan. I'm rooting for you over Lisa Ann Walter. But the question we're going to be dealing with all offseason is, will Mahomes be ready? Will Mahomes be ready? Will Mahomes be ready? And I almost wonder if they purposely dropped this on week one for us to have a talking point for all of August and for us to be looking around and asking everyone, because quite personally, I'm tired of talking about Aaron Rodgers, and at least now there's something else to be wondering as we do our work towards week one.
So, wait, if we're going to answer that with a question, Mina, would it be who is the starting quarterback for the Chiefs week one? Is that how we would answer that if we got the buzzer on time?
Well, I would say who is Patrick Mahomes hopefully is the answer, but because if it's not, that game's certainly going to lose some of its luster.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Moving on, new on NFL Live, Bengals head coach Zach Taylor spoke this afternoon on the impact of the additions that Cincinnati has made on defense this season.
I think it has been an impact that I was shocked that he was here every day, right after we traded for him, that he just chose to jump right in and not miss a day initially. I think when you get access to a tremendous player like him, like Jonathan Allen, like Boye Mafe, in addition to all the guys up front that have already been in the system, young guys, older guys, it's just exciting. And just to add reinforcements to the trenches like that is good for a guy that calls plays on offense too.
Okay, Peter, shameless plug time. You had Zach Taylor on the Schrager Hour last week. What was your biggest takeaway, though, from that conversation?
That they made a very concerted effort to spend money on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, the Dexter Lawrence trade is huge, but when you add in Jonathan Allen and Brian Cook and Boye Mafe, this was them telling the rest of the world, we see a window and we think this is where we need to beef up. What was fascinating that I didn't realize until I spoke to Zach, they have 11 starters returning on offense. So they kind of were like, we feel pretty good here. And then in the draft, they went and got Cassius Howell, who was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year, to add on to that list of players that they had. But when it came down to it, the Dexter Lawrence trade was as follows. They wanted a defensive tackle. They looked at the draft. There was no one worthy of the 10th overall pick. So they went 1 for 1, and they said, we'll pay an extra bunch of $1 million to bring in Dexter Lawrence. The hope is that they have a veteran defense that can now compete with 3 other teams in that division who have new head coaches.
This should be one of the most improved defensive lines in football. And granted, it was 32nd in pass rush wins, so the bar is not particularly high. But Peter's right about Dexter Lawrence. I mean, even in last year being a down year and he played through some injuries, he was still the second most double-team defensive tackle in the NFL. Boye Mafe, who they signed from Seattle, is a really complete edge. He's very good against the run, very consistent. We're going to see if he can contribute more in the pass rush with more snaps. And then I think on the back end, the Brian Cook signing, do you still think this linebacker group is a big question mark and a concern? But realistically, given how good the Bengals offense is and should be, all the defense has to be as average. And when I look back at the depth chart, I actually think they are capable of meeting that mark.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they needed to focus on the defense with how it performed a year ago, and they have. And I think all of us expect them to be better. The concern I have, just organizationally, when you and Joe Burrow health-wise, he's been in the league 6 years. He's started the entire season just 3 times in 6 years. That's half of the time he's been in the league. And in that stretch, they've only had double-digit wins twice. It's just not been a good organization. And a lot of it has been because the quarterback can't stay healthy. And some of it is, things outside of his control, or, injured or sick at the beginning of the season, or, an ACL injury that is a long period of time, or a thumb injury. It just feels like, in some ways for me, it feels like Matthew Stafford early on in Detroit. While there's talent on the team, and you think, wow, this team could be really good. They could be really good. This quarterback is definitely Super Bowl caliber quarterback, but man, they just organizationally can't get it done, can't be competitive with the elite organizations in the league. That's just what it's starting to feel like to me with Burrow's era in Cincinnati.
That's an interesting comp. Of course, later everything worked out for Stafford, but that was because of it. Today we revisit the Week 16 matchup between the Packers and Bears.
I think it's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. 2 really good teams late in December go at it for a lot at stake.
It's our time. It's our time today. Let's go.
Snap is back. Spot is down. Cairo Santos kicks it. It is up and it is good. 16-9. It's a 1-score game once again. Santos bouncing the ball around. It's not picked up. Let's see who's got it. Bears ball. They've recovered an onside kick. Caleb Williams with Swift to his left, takes the snap, blitzes on, being chased, got a lot of touchdown! Are you kidding me? That throw to Ja'Day Walker. Willis with a one-back set. They fumble the snap. It is Bears football.
You know what's doing the game, my boy. Yep.
You got that belief, you got that confidence. You got that Swaggers offense.
Snap. Caleb, play fake, looking to throw, going deep, searching for DJ Moore, over the shoulder, touchdown Bears! It's over at Soldier Field. The Iceman cometh, the Iceman taketh.
What a great call, by the way, at the end of that game. All right, now we're talking Packers, coming off a third straight playoff berth. Haven't won a division title since 2021. And for 2026, Jonathan Gannon, he takes over as defensive coordinator. He replaces Jeff Hafley, who, as you know, is now the head coach of the Dolphins. He has additions Javon Hargrave, Zaire Franklin is there, and second-round cornerback Brandon Cisse as well. So they trade away their first-round pick for Micah Parsons. They use 4 of their remaining picks on defense. Peter, what do you make of that overhaul there in Green Bay?
Well, I'm still getting goosebumps from that highlight reel, and I would take 2 Monday night games on ESPN between these two teams if the schedule makers are listening. I look at the defense, and it's fascinating because Hafley goes to Miami, and now you bring in Jonathan Gannon, and they do not run the same defense. Whereas Hafley ran like an aggressive 4-3 with that even front. Jonathan Gannon is more of that Fangio style where it's going to be mixed, it's going to be 3-4, and it really is going to be contingent, a lot of that, on that front seven and how they can handle things with Gannon. What's interesting is on third down, you would always see Hafley throw some like exotic blitz out there when Jonathan Gannon's defense typically is like, hey, let's trust our front 4 and let's drop 7 back in coverage, Vic Fangio style. So it's a little bit in the weeds, but same Jimmys and Joes. And I guess you add in Zaire Franklin and you add in Harger, that's fine. But a different defense and a different person calling the shots. I'm fascinated to see if it's better or worse this time around than it was last year with Hafley, which, by the way, was pretty darn good.
Yeah, different X's and O's. All right, so Mina, on the other side, they only take one offensive player. They take a center in round 5 in this defensive-heavy draft. Do you think overall they did enough offensively to set themselves up?
I think the skill group should be fine, but with a caveat or a question mark, when is Tucker Kraft going to be back and be available? Is it going to be week 1? I think this is maybe not as big of an absence of Micah Parsons or a question mark, but it's not that far off in terms of his importance to this Packers passing attack. I mean, folks forget, through the first 9 weeks of the season, before Tucker Kraft got hurt, he was 5th amongst all pass catchers in yards per route run, which captures both productivity and usage. That's ahead of receivers like Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. That's how important he was in this offense. He averaged 15 yards a catch, pardon me. He was their weapon against man coverage. He was so good at getting yards after the catch and creating explosives, breaking tackles. If he comes back and he looks anything like he did that first part of the season, I feel great about this group with Christian Watson as the deep threat, Jaden Reed as your gadget guy, Matthew Golden, we'll see what he's got. But Kraft has to be there, Tim, and if he's not, I start to get a little bit worried about the group.
Yeah, I think it's a great call on Kraft because he really is a good player. And, I think, in a way, a little bit like Trey McBride, one of these tight ends that I think people don't really realize how good they are and how much they do, for their team. Kraft is exactly that. So him being healthy and being the player he was, is important for them. I think the rest of it is really good, though. And, I think they have a proven back who they can rely on. I think their pass catchers have a lot of speed. And I think we saw improved play at the position a year ago. I think we'll see more of it with Golden a year older. And so I actually think another part of this is, look, Jordan Love, you're being asked to elevate the franchise. That's what you're going to be asked to do. And so I think that's a big part of this. When you look at the division and you say, look, Detroit's good, Chicago's good, Minnesota's got good players. What are the things that are going to differentiate these organizations from each other? Some of it is, look, is the quarterback a guy that's just an absolute difference maker? And I think ability-wise, it's widely believed around the league that Jordan Love has the potential to be an MVP type of player. But I think that the production needs to start to match that because the last 2 years have not been as good as it was 3 years ago. And I think that's really going to be what separates teams in the division. Does Minnesota get great quarterback play? Does Chicago's continue to elevate with their superstar? What is it that will change it? And I think that's the pressure that Jordan Love is under.
Speaking of pressure, he was pressured on 29% of his dropbacks last season. On September 14th, Broncos head coach Sean Payton spoke earlier this week on the status of quarterback Bo Nix, who fractured his right ankle in the divisional round in mid-January.
He's doing great. He'll be well ahead of time for training camp. I think there's a good chance we see him in this offseason program in June. We're going to be the ones kind of holding him back, if you will. The follow-up procedure was not a surprise. No surprises. We feel real good about where he's at. And you guys will have a chance to see it, here in a few weeks. But clearly, full speed by training camp. We just want to be smart.
All right, so Tim, assuming that Nix is good to go, this was a team that obviously had a Super Bowl trajectory before he was unable to play in the AFC title game. So what are your expectations for the Broncos this year?
I think they're going to be really good again because, you hear Sean Payton just not concerned about Nix being back. I think they'll be good offensively. The question for me is, defensively, can they repeat how good they were a year ago? Top 3 scoring defense, top 3 in terms of yards allowed, first in sacks in the National Football League, first in red zone efficiency. And so I think when you look at them defensively, they were really, really good. And, that's a big part of the reason I think that you've seen the quarterback development that you've seen in Denver. Just quite frankly, when you're not, playing from behind or feeling like you always are playing catch up, you can kind of control the game the way you want. And so are they able to recreate that? Are they able to do that? Vance Joseph has come in and done a really good job. That, to me, I think will be, more so the key and the concern than, hey, how healthy is Bo Nix, with the expectation he'll be back.
Yeah, I think Nix's foot issue is going to be the biggest storyline. I would also add they didn't do much this offseason except one big trade, and that was going and getting Jalen Waddle. And it was a similar philosophy to what Cincinnati had with Dexter Lawrence. Here was Denver sitting with the 30th overall pick. They wanted a new receiver. They looked at the board, and they didn't think necessarily that Omar Cooper would be there. And they didn't think necessarily that KC Concepcion was worthy of that pick, or you name it, Denzel Boston or Stribling, who no one else seemed to think so except for the Niners would be worthy of that pick. Sure enough, they said, let's just swap it for Waddle. Now you've got Waddle and Sutton and Mims and Bryant. You've got this basketball team at wide receiver, and then they add Jonah Coleman to go with J.K. Dobbins. I like the additions, but there was no big splash. And as we're filming this, I think we'll find out soon with the Disney upfronts going on whether that week 1 is in Denver or Kansas City. And I'm fascinated to see if that offense is better this year than it was when we last saw them in the playoffs season ago.
I think it will be, and Waddle is a big part of why. I mean, I loved this addition for the passing game. I also love, Peter, what it will do for the run game. Kind of one of the mysteries or questions watching this Broncos offense over the last couple of years is, why don't they run the football better despite the fact that they have a very good run-blocking offensive line? And you can point to the backs. I do think losing Dobbins last season hurt them, and getting him back should help. But I also think the lack of fear of this passing attack hurt them as well. They faced the 6th highest rate of stacked boxes in the NFL. If you stack the box with Jalen Waddle and Courtland Sutton on the field, as well as some of their auxiliary players, that's a scary proposition. So I think that will open things up on the ground. They'll face more lighter boxes, and those running backs will benefit from his presence.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he does in Denver. Only 100-yard receiving game last season, so it should be a lot of fun. Obviously, they are not going to be sneaking up on anyone this year. Schrags, ask and you shall receive. Site update, says Adam Schefter moments ago. The opening week 1 Monday Night Football game between the Broncos and the Chiefs will be played in Kansas City. The NFL had not finalized the game site until today. So you're right. Your reaction. We start in KC, Schrags.
Yeah, that's quite a place to be. And Mina and Tim and Hannah, we could start the clock. Will he or won't he? Will Mahomes be under center? Or are we going to be prepping for Justin Fields against that Broncos defense? But back to Arrowhead we go. Kelsey, Mahomes, and the whole gang. Chiefs, they get the home game despite the fact they were swept and the Broncos won the division last year.
Yeah, I know. Somewhat surprising, right? 0-2 to Denver, but they get to open the season at Arrowhead. All right, guys, let's get back to the Bills, though, okay? Sean McDermott is out. We know Joe Brady is in at the head coaching spot. They trade for DJ Moore. Mina, how much better does this make Buffalo? What do you think of them this season, their offseason moves?
Yeah, it's Funny because the Waddle trade happened before the draft, it almost flew under the radar. And you could argue the DJ Moore trade even more so, right? Even though that was Buffalo's big move. To me, it's a bet on him, I would say, returning to form a little bit and helping them address their biggest problem last year, which was the offense, being so much better against zone than man coverage. The Bills faced the most man coverage of any team in the entire NFL, and that was largely because against zone coverage, they were the best offense in football in EPA per play, whereas against man, they were essentially average. And that even despite the fact that when defenses play man, they turn their back to Josh Allen and they risk the possibility of him taking off. But they were so not afraid of this receiving group that they were willing to take that risk. Can DJ Moore change that? I think that's the biggest question and will probably go a long way towards determining whether or not this Bills offense improves at all.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily an upgrade. I guess the message got stale with McDermott, and I understand making a move, but they won a lot of games with Sean McDermott. They knocked on the door plenty of times. This is a big swing. Going to a first-time head coach, going to a first-time NFL defensive coordinator with Jim Leonard, who was a DC for a Wisconsin Badgers team for 5 years and has bounced around the NFL as a coach since his playing days. But Hannah, I can't just immediately say, oh, they upgraded because they've got Joe Brady as their new head coach. He's never been a coach anywhere as a head coach. So let's see, right? Like, we have to check out how it all plays out.
Well, here's the rub, right? They've won 91 games since 2017, but that is the most ever in a 7-game span in NFL history without making it to the Super Bowl. So that's the goal. You know, every move they make is towards that. All right, new on NFL Live. Team that's been there plenty, the Patriots, and their wide receiver Romeo Doubs spoke about the potential addition of one AJ Brown. Take a listen.
I have a ton of respect for him. I mean, he's been a dude in this league for quite a long time. I understand there's a lot of rumors going around. Like, if he's here, I'd love to have him here. And if he isn't here, I'm still going to wish him the best because he's one of the guys in this league. So I was true to my word when I came here that, you know, there is no number one guy in this offense. I'm open to all roles. That's just part of this league. You know, the more you can do, the more you can do for the team, the more you show for yourself, just things of that nature. So.
Goodness gracious. I guess we have to talk about this until early June. Tim, your thoughts on what you just heard from Dobbs?
Well, listen, look, it's just widely expected that A.J. Brown is going to end up there, and he's going to be the number one receiver in New England when he gets there. The reality is he catches touchdowns. He's a big physical receiver who would have a massive impact on a team that over the last 2 seasons has tried to improve at that position. It's why they signed Stefon Diggs last year. It's why Romeo Doubs is there now. They feel like they have a superstar quarterback who's on a rookie contract, and when that's the case, you need to step on the gas, put people around him so that you can have success. If they do that, you know, with A.J. Brown, I think it'll have a massive impact. And quite frankly, I think it'll make the receivers like Dobbs around him even better.
And this just into NFL Live new from Adam Schefter, an international game update from the Disney Upfront. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Atlanta Falcons will play Week 9 Sunday, November 8th in Madrid, Spain. That will be taking place on NFL Network, Schrags, the second game in Madrid. Your thoughts?
It kind of feels like we're at Free Agent Frenzy or the NCAA Tournament Selection Show. We're getting news as we get here. This is cool. I think last year was a good welcome to Spain moment for the NFL in Madrid. Bernabeu Stadium is one of the greats in the world, and it had this big renovation in 2024 where they put in this 360 video scoreboard. It houses 85,000 people. But I think the big thing here to me, the NFL sent the Bengals to London in 2016 and 2019, and it was like, whatever. The NFL choosing the Bengals for this game tells me that the league really believes in this franchise and that maybe they are one of the state-of-the-art teams that we're going to showcase the league with. So really cool stadium, really cool country, and really cool fan base that we're all putting together. Falcons versus Bengals.
Yeah, we're going to see 9 international games. Sunday mornings are going to be a lot of fun coming up. All right, one team we do know a lot about their schedule, and that is the Dallas Cowboys, because so far 3 of their games have actually been announced. A Week 1 matchup against the Giants In week 3, they take a trip to Brazil to face the Ravens, and then obviously they're going to play on Thanksgiving Day, and that game is going to be against the Eagles. And when they take the field for this upcoming season, it will feature a new-look defense bolstered by a host of offseason signings and a pair of first-round draft picks, Caleb Downs, Malachi Lawrence, a new DC, and Christian Parker. Last season, they ranked last in the NFL in points and passing yards allowed. So, Tim, who's going to be the biggest difference maker on that defense?
Well, I think Rashawn Gary is going to have a massive impact. They needed an edge rusher. They traded theirs away at the start of the season. So I do think that that's a big impact. And then I think Caleb Downs, by all accounts, because of where he's going to play and the impact that, a guy that's, kind of playing in space, can tackle, can cover, it's kind of an easier position to have an immediate impact. So I really like the moves that Dallas has made this offseason on the defensive side. You mentioned Christian Parker, kind of a young up-and-coming coach that I know that they have high expectations for there in Dallas. And then when you combine that with what I and many others believe is going to be one of the best offenses in the game because of their talent at wide receiver, because of who their quarterback is. I think Dallas, who we talk about seemingly a lot every single offseason, look, they really, I guess when I look at it, I think they have one of their better teams that they've had in recent memory. And so for that, the optimism and all the talk this time of year really is not for nothing. I think it's going to matter in a division that should be very winnable for them.
Yeah, listen, Tim, they're currently the second favorites to win the NFC East at DraftKings Sportsbook. They're at plus 225. Dallas coming off back-to-back 7-win seasons. Obviously, the favorite in this division has to be the Eagles. They won the last 2 NFC East titles. The last team to win 3 straight, yes, it was the Eagles. They won 4 in a row from 2001 to 2004. So, Mina, have the Eagles made all the right adjustments this offseason to put them right back in contention?
Yeah, I think they characteristically made a lot of smart moves, especially compensating for some of the holes that existed or have sprung up on defense. The biggest problem last year on that defense, and there were very few, it was one of the 3 best defenses in football, in my opinion, was the second cornerback position. Go out and get Tariq Woolen, who has some highs and lows, perhaps, but let me tell you that is an upgrade, and he will get his hands on the football. And then the trade for Jonathan Grenard, I absolutely loved. I think they wanted to retain Jalen Phillips, but Grenard is a fantastic consolation prize because he's such a good fit for that Vic Fangio defense, which likes to play with light boxes. He's very good at setting an edge. He will get pressure when Jalen Carter eats up those double teams. So I do think they did enough to maintain pace with that defense, which, given how good they were last year, well, that should be enough to compensate for any issues early on with the offense.
Yeah, top 5 in scoring defense the last 2 years. Again, they have yet another new OC. Well, spell schedule officially coming out Thursday. We already know a few matchups. In fact, we found out a couple during this show. The regular season is going to start with your defending champion Seahawks on Wednesday night, September 9th in Seattle. Here's the deal, though. We don't know who they're going to play yet. The next night, it's the 49ers and the Rams from Melbourne. How cool is that? The first ever regular season game in Australia. Then Cowboys, Giants, first Sunday night game of the season, and more division rivalry. Broncos, Chiefs, premiere of Monday Night Football coming to you from Arrowhead Stadium, just announced this hour. All right, new Seahawk Dante Fowler was asked what sold him on coming to Seattle. It was this message from DeMarcus Lawrence, and I quote, "If you want to win a Super Bowl, you should come here." I love it. Peter, everybody likes a winner. In what sense has Seattle become a preferred destination for players?
I think this is a cool, sneaky storyline, and that in recent years, it was like you go to Buffalo for that 1-year deal, or you go to Kansas City for that 1-year deal, and years before that, it was always Indianapolis and New England. If you want to chase the ring, you go to those teams. It sounds like Seattle might be that destination moving forward, and they're not going anywhere. They're so young, they're so loaded, and their coach has no ego where it's not beating his chest like we're the team, that it becomes a very desirable destination for a veteran player who wants to play in big games. Fowler has. He's been with the Rams. He's played in big games for the Jaguars. His whole entire career, he's bounced around the league. I thought this was a really telling statement, and I think this is just the start of what might be a several-year, I'm not going to say dynasty, but evolution of Seattle as one of these franchises that was always relevant, and they've won their Super Bowls, and they've been, of course, into multiple Super Bowls, but now maybe being the destination for veteran players. And Fowler could have signed a lot of different places, but he, like DeMarcus Lawrence a year ago, chose Seattle. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Peter, I'll add, I think it's an especially attractive destination for a defensive lineman in particular, because when you come to Seattle, they're not asking you to play every snap, line up outside the tackle, and get double-digit sacks. They truly rush as a team. They use their depth. All the defensive linemen run a lot of games. Sometimes you will be asking to drop into coverage to create opportunities and single opportunities, for other pass rushers. And then you get to play with these fantastic defensive tackles, Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams in particular. So I think you saw Lawrence last year have a bit of a renaissance when he came to Seattle. And I think a big part of that was not just his talent, but also his usage under Mike Macdonald. That, to me, has to also be appealing to a player like Dante Fowler, who is nearing the end of his career.
Yeah, and look, I think when you look at the impact that they're going to have on the offensive side of the ball from Jadarian Price, I think ends up being the key. I think it's a really talented team. They've identified speed and length on the defensive side of the ball. They know what they want, and they play fast. They've got great length on that side. Now, on the offensive side, we know that, last year they wanted to run the football. I don't think that they will get away from that, even with Clint Kubiak gone. I think that'll still be the foundation of what they're going to do. And Jadarian Price, who, wasn't the bell cow back at Notre Dame, I think ends up being that in Seattle week 1. Just with Charbonnet's injury and Kenneth Walker leaving in free agency, I think it's basically a foregone conclusion that he's the opening day, week 1 starter. And I think they're going to rely on him a lot. I think he's going to be a guy that probably touches the ball on average, close to 15 times a game. So, and there's a chance if he is what they think he, can be, and John Schneider's been right a lot in terms of personnel, they may actually be better at running the football than they were throughout the duration of the season a year ago.
Yeah, you know what? I totally agree with you, Tim. And what I find so fascinating about Price is, interesting to hear you mention, he might get 15 plus carries a game. He never had over 15 touches a game in college. So he's this great mystery for Seattle. And the risk here is, can he really be a bell cow back? Can he run between the tackles and early downs? Can he catch passes? Can he pass protect? We don't know. But he also has basically no tread on his tires, right? The flip side of taking a back who has this little college experience is you could actually really benefit from that if he hits. But to me, that makes this one of the more fascinating draft picks in the entire draft, because as Tim correctly said, he is going to be the number 1 in Seattle earlier than not.
Yeah, because you shared that backfield with Jeremiah Love. He is one of 2 players in the FBI